from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening. Welcome to the National News broadcast coming to you live from the National News Studios here at Rupavahini. I'm Kasani Balachandra. Joining me is Clifford Richards. Here are your top stories for the night.
Litro gas prices reduce. Bond deposits for local government elections was conducted today. President stresses need for good foreign service to safeguard the country's sovereignty. A draft bill to increase the youth representation at the local government institutions to 25% presented. Thousands gather in St. Peter's Square for the funeral of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI.
We move on to those and other stories in detail, and in your top local story tonight, Litro Gas Company decides to reduce the domestic gas prices. The relevant decision will come to effect from midnight today. Accordingly, the price of a 12.5 kilogram gas cylinder has been reduced by 201 rupees and the new price is 4,409 rupees. The price of a 5 kilogram gas cylinder has been reduced by 80 rupees and the new price is at 1,770 rupees. Meanwhile, the price of a 2.3 kilogram gas cylinder has been reduced by 38 rupees and its new price is at 822 rupees.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena presented the draft bill of the amendment to the Local Government Institutions Act, revising the youth interpretation and representation in the local government institutions to 25% to Parliament today. Well, the relevant proposal was presented to the Parliament on November 2nd last year by parliamentarian Premanath C. Dulawat as a private bill.
Parliamentarian Premanath C. Dulawat, who presented the bill, thanked the relevant minister for paving the way for his private bill to move forward. He pointed out that the other parliamentarians may also not raise any objection.
However, the opposition raised their objection to the bill. The chief whip of the opposition, MP Lakshman Killadio, pointed out that the same bill was presented by parliamentarian Imtiaz Baqir Marka 6 months ago and it was not moved within the parliamentary procedures. Therefore, Mr. Killadio expressed his displeasure regarding that situation.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena raised and pointed out that the opposition was presenting misleading information. He said when a parliamentarian presented a private motion, it has to go through a set of procedures. He regretted that certain members of the opposition were not aware of this.
NPP leader MP Anukumara Dissanayake explained the controversies related to the present private motion. He pointed out that the current constitutional provisions, 10% of all candidates must be women and 25% of the total representation must be allocated for female candidates. The current nomination process for the local government elections declared by the government was initiated under the existing regulations. Mr. Dissanayake pointed out that if this bill was passed before the nomination process, there would be a disastrous consequences.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa said that the government, rather replying to the question, Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa reiterated that the government would not take any action that could disrupt the election process.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa said that as the government issues various statements mentioning that it does not have financial resources to hold local government elections, he questioned the Justice Minister whether the government is ready to provide all the necessary facilities for the election process.
Sri Lanka Podu Jana Peramuna became the first recognized political party to make the deposit for the upcoming local government election today. Deposits were made at the Kalutara District Secretariat today for 13 Pradesha Sabha and 4 municipal councils in Kalutara District. General Secretary to the party, Sagara Karyavasam, Parliamentarian Rohita Gunawardena and Nama Rajapaksa were present at the occasion. An independent group has made the deposits to contest for the Bandaravela Municipal Council in Badola district yesterday. Meanwhile, accepting postal vote applications for the local government elections was commenced today. The election Election Commission said that the process will conclude on the 23rd midnight. The Commission further informed that the relevant period will not be extended under any circumstances. The nominations for the election will be called between 18th and the 21st. Accordingly, election will be held for 340 local government institutions as the term of the LPTI Pradesh Sabha is yet to be completed. Therefore, nominations will not be called for the relevant local government institutions.
A number of incidents have been reported of poaching and logging within the Uvawala National Park during the recent months. Our news team filed a report on these alleged crimes that destroy the fauna and flora within the national park. The Uvawala National Park in the dry zone of the southern Sri Lanka was declared open in 1989. With the forest cover of 30,000 hectares, the national park is a sanctuary for elephants, leopards, deer and buffaloes and many other species. A number of endemic and other bird species are also living there. However, the park has become a killing field of hunters and other criminals who are armed with automatic weapons and many other poaching equipment during the last several years. According to wildlife officials, the situation became very bad in the recent past. Although wildlife forest rangers conduct frequent operations to stop such crimes, their effort is in vain as the criminals became more and more powerful with outside support from various factions, including certain security forces personnel. Some of those security forces personnel were arrested while engaged in hunting activities within the forest reserve. The meat of the poached animals are selling in stalls and restaurants in the close vicinity of Uvawala Park. At the same time, several wild elephants were found dead within the park recently, and investigations revealed that those jumbos were brutally killed. Wildlife officials allege that various powerful factions who support the poachers are continuously disrupting their actions against illegal activities within the national park. They say there are certain barriers to produce confiscated hunting equipment to the court as evidence due to the disruptive activities of organized powerful factions. Our news team reveals that if these malpractices continue unabated, wildlife in the Uvawala National Park will perish soon.
"75 new buses have been added to the public bus service to enhance the transportation in the remote and rural areas. The value of the project was 825 million rupees. Enhancing the transportation in the rural areas of Sri Lanka was a project launched with the support of the Indian Credit Line. The bus service was declared open by Minister Bandula Gunawardena and High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Mr. Gopal Bhagle, this morning. New buses have been distributed among 70 depots belonging to Sri Lanka Transport Board.
Another suspect alleged to have forcibly entered the national television premises during the mass protest held in Colombo was arrested at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake upon arriving from Dubai. The police have named this individual as a suspect who had forcibly entered the national television premises along with Danish Ali when a group of protesters gathered in front of the Sri Lankan Rupavahini Corporation. The suspect, Randimal Gamage, was taken to the Cinnamon Gardens police following the arrest. Subsequently, the suspect was released on 2 sureties worth 200,000 rupees each.
Central Bank of Sri Lanka says the envisaged IMF facility is expected to materialize in early 2023 in a statement. The central bank has pointed out that the country expects to receive the IMF Extended Fund Facility consequent to the significant progress made in the relation to the interaction with creditors. Issuing a statement on the monetary and financial sector policies for 2023, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has said that tough policy measures were implemented during 2022 together with the government to restore the macroeconomic balance in the country. Central Bank said that the monetary policy was tightened by an unprecedented adjustment in interest rates to prevent inflationary pressures from any adverse inflation expectations. In parallel with the implementation of economic stabilization measures, steps were taken to secure financing assurances from creditors for the debt restructuring process to ensure medium-term public debt sustainability. With significant progress being made at present in relation to the interaction with creditors, the IMF facility is expected to materialize in early 2023. Sri Lanka's central bank expects the headline inflation to move along a disinflationary path with a deceleration in the first half of 2023 and reaching the desired levels of inflation towards the end of 2023. The economy is also expected to record a gradual recovery from the second half of 2023 and sustain the growth momentum beyond. The statement has indicated that an efficient implementation of the identified near-term stabilization measures and the medium to long-term structural reforms, both by the central bank and the government, are vital to position Sri Lanka on a fast track to recovery on a sustained basis.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe stresses the need for good foreign service to safeguard the country's sovereignty. The President Wickremesinghe made these remarks while instructing the newly appointed Sri Lankan ambassadors and also a High Commissioner who paid a courtesy call on the President at the Presidential Secretariat prior to leaving for their missions. Chitrangani Vagishwara has been appointed as a new Sri Lankan High Commissioner to Australia. Ambassador to France is Matisha Gunasekara, and HMG RRK Vijayaratna has been named as the Ambassador to Bahrain. Dr. ASU Mendes has been appointed as the Ambassador to Vietnam. Varuni Muthukumarana is the new Ambassador to Germany. Ambassador to Lebanon is Kapila Javira, while MHMN Bandara has been appointed to Israel. KK Kumarasiri is the new ambassador to Ethiopia. Priyangika Vijayagunasekara has been appointed as the ambassador to Jordan, while Dr. Chanaka H. Kalpaheva has been appointed to the Philippines. New ambassador to UAE is Uday Indraratna. The president requested the Sri Lankan diplomats to take measures to commit for the rebuilding process of Sri Lanka.
We have to build up a good foreign service, and that will depend on how you all perform. Firstly, the foreign policy. The ministry is at the moment formulating a draft what our foreign policy should be by 2030. There will also be the economic plans. So we have to fulfill the objectives in those plans. It will be basically first to safeguard the sovereignty of Sri Lanka, and that also involves that we should, as a foreign service, be able to have relations with a larger number of countries. We need that. So one is making foreign policy, secondly is making friends. Then the other economic and the security objectives, the climate change objectives that we have to fulfill. Now what I would expect then is that this is the start of putting a paper up to the cabinet and thereafter to parliament, not only on foreign policy but on the foreign service. Now what are your main function? First is to carry out those objectives. We will have the Sri Lanka Diaspora office here. So all the issues they have there or here can be reflected there. We have to safeguard the rights of Sri Lankans out there. Firstly is to build up your contacts within that country. That is the most important thing. If you have no contact, you are not going anywhere. And that's what I want you all to start with. The big change is going to be the International Trade Office. The Department of Commerce will be replaced by the International Trade Office because a lot of your work in many areas pertain to trade. So International Trade Office will be an important part of this. So one by one, each of you will have a different objective. So how do we expand our trade and investment and tourism? There we have to start building up our relationships, economic and political.
Well, applications have been called to form a national youth platform concurrently with the 75th National Independence Day celebrations.
The program is underway based on the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The National Youth Platform's objective is to give Sri Lankan youth the opportunity to be a part of the nation-building process in making Sri Lanka a prosperous and well-developed nation by 2048. The whole program is oriented to kickstart a 25-year development agenda and make youth responsible partners in the process. The President has a firm belief that if the youth want to make a change, they have to come forward and take the leadership, and the National Youth Platform is the opportunity for them to emerge.
Well, the Southern Expressway bus fares have been reduced by 10% from midnight yesterday. Well, the annual license fee for the Expressway buses has been reduced from 3.3 million rupees to 1.296 million rupees due to the increase of fuel prices and bus fares. The semi-luxury bus service that operates between Colombo to Katharagama along the Galle Road has been converted into a formal service and a normal service from midnight yesterday. The public appreciates the measures taken to reduce the Expressway bus fares.
A silent protest was organized near the Attorney General's department, urging the release of convener of Inter-University Students Federation, Vasantha Mudalige, who is in custody. The protest was organized by the Inter-University Students Federation and the Aragalaya movement. Meanwhile, the police interfered the protesters who were engaging in a silent protest march at the technical junction. A tense situation occurred subsequently. A gazette notification has been issued restricting the import of gold above 22 carats as jewellery, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simbalapitiya said. He said in a Twitter post that the decision was taken to prevent gold smuggling. A special gazette notification has been issued restricting bringing in more than 22 carats in gold as jewellery to Sri Lanka in a bid to prevent gold smuggling. In a statement, the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilisation and National Policies has pointed out that several cases of gold smuggling into the country were reported during the recent period under the guise of wearing the gold jewellery upon entering the country. The ministry has also emphasised the country losses, that the country loses about 30 million USD monthly as a result of such smuggling activities. State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simbalapitiya has directly intervened in this regard and looked into the matter together with the Department of Customs, it said, further adding that it was discovered that around 50 kilograms of gold are smuggled into the island daily. It has been revealed that some smugglers are engaged in gold smuggling activities on a daily basis due to the lack of restrictions on carrying gold into the country.
Development Lotteries Board has introduced a new lottery to the market. The new lottery has been named as Lucky Freedom. Well, the jackpot of the lottery is 5 million rupees along with many other prizes. The lottery was launched to the market at an event held at the Development Lottery Board premises yesterday. The event was held with the participation of General Manager of the board, Anura Jayaratna. The first draw will be held on the 10th of this month. In parallel to the event, other lottery winners and sales agents in Colombo district received various prizes and cheques.
3 containers consisting of oranges unreleased from the port have been distributed among 3 hospitals. Each container is consisted of close to 24,000 kilos of oranges. Accordingly, the Ministry of Health has planned to distribute the consignments among 60 provincial-based hospitals, including the Colombo National Hospital, Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children and Apeksha Hospital, Maharagama. The 3 containers, which consisted of 72,000 kilos of oranges, are worth at 720 million rupees. A kilo of oranges is estimated in the local market at 1,000 rupees. The Ministry of Finance has removed relevant custom duties since the oranges are distributed among hospitals free of charge. Ministers Nimal Siripala de Silva and Killadio Uvawala were present at this occasion. Pope Francis paid tribute to his predecessor, former Pope Benedict XVI, today in a funeral attended by tens of thousands of mourners at the St. Peter's Square.
Well, Pope Benedict was buried in a crypt beneath St. Peter's Basilica that holds the tombs of more than 90 of his predecessors. The funeral marked the first occasion in modern times that a pontiff has presided over the funeral of his predecessor, and the first ever one who resigned. Benedict, the first pontiff in almost 600 years to resign from his position rather than hold office for life, died aged 95 on December 31st at a monastery in a Vatican City. Dignitaries and religious leaders line the square today, which can seat approximately 60,000 people for the ceremony. The ceremony was similar to that of the reigning Pope, but with some modifications. Benedict was named Pope Emeritus during the funeral, and the language of some prayers was different because he was not the reigning Pope when he died. Pope Francis gave a homily during a mass led by him this morning. Benedict's coffin was transported through the basilica and will be transferred to the Vatican crypt for burial in the first tomb of John Paul II. The tomb was vacated after John Paul II's body and remains were moved to a chapel inside the basilica after he became a saint. At the same time of burial during the rite, the webbing will be placed around the coffin with the seals of the apostolic chamber and the pontifical house and the liturgical celebrations. The cypress coffin will be placed inside a zinc coffin that is soldered and sealed and subsequently placed inside a wooden coffin which will be buried. Benedict was elected Pope in April 2005 following John Paul II's death. He was known to be more conservative than his successor, Pope Francis. About 200,000 mourners, including Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and President Sergio Mattarella, paid their respects to the former pontiff earlier this week during his lying in state at St. Peter's Basilica. The public viewing of the Benedict finished yesterday before an intimate religious rite during which items including coins and medals minted over his tenure and a scroll about the pontificate were placed into his sealed cypress coffin ahead of the funeral. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with more international stories in the International Story segment.
Welcome back, and in your foreign news tonight, the World Health Organization says that China data underrepresents true impact of COVID outbreak in the country. Growing concerns prevail over the steep rise in COVID infections since Beijing last month abruptly lifted years of hardline restrictions, with hospitals and crematoriums quickly overwhelmed. The World Health Organization has criticized China's narrow definition of COVID-19 deaths, warning that official statistics are not showing the true impact of the outbreak. The UN agency released data provided by the Chinese Centers for Disease Control and Prevention a day after WHO officials met Chinese scientists.
Pakistan's government has ordered shopping centers and markets to close early every day as the country faces an economic crisis. Pakistan authorities have indicated that the measures will save the South Asian nation around 62 billion Pakistani rupees. Pakistan generates most of its power using imported fossil fuels. The global energy prices jumped last year, putting further pressure on the country's dwindling finances. To pay for those energy imports, the country needs foreign currency, especially US dollars. The Pakistan government had $11.7 billion US dollars for foreign currencies available last month after it reserves fell by about 50% last year, which will be sufficient to cover around a month worth of all countries' imports, most of which is energy.
Evacuation orders and advisories are in place in parts of Northern California as a major storm slams into the coast. Regions that have been hit by wildfires in the past were among the first places to be informed to evacuate due to concerns on flooding and landslides. California's governor has declared a state of emergency for the storm, the second to drench the state in a week. Forecasters say it will form into a bomb cyclone, a type of explosive storm, and will probably kill people. Northern California, which saw a deadly levee breach over the weekend, is expected to be hardest hit. The National Weather Service has issued a flood watch and high wind warning for the entire Bay Area in Northern California, saying that wind gusts were expected to down trees and cause power outages.
Well, rescuers in southern Vietnam failed to save a 10-year-old boy trapped in a deep pile of concrete despite days of round-the-clock efforts to pull him free. Well, it is unclear when the boy fell into this 35-meter deep hole at a Mekong Delta bridge construction site on December 31st died. The child was identified as Thai Ly Hao Nam. President or Prime Minister of Vietnam, Pham Minh Chinh, had ordered an all-round effort to save the child that included hundreds of rescuers. Rescuers are still working to retrieve the body of the child. The child, who was looking for scraps of metal with his friends, is believed to have run out of oxygen in the narrow space of just 25 centimeters.
Rajasthan's Killadio National Park is a major winter refuge for migratory birds. Around 364 species of birds, including the rare Siberian crane, have been recorded in the park. Killadio National Park, located in the state of Rajasthan, is an important wintering ground of palearctic migratory waterfowl. The park is also renowned for its large congregation of non-migratory resident breeding birds. This former duck hunting reserve of the Maharajas is one of the major wintering areas for large numbers of aquatic birds from Afghanistan, China and Siberia. While hunting has ceased and the area declared a national park in 1982, its continued existence is dependent on a regulated water supply from a reservoir outside the park boundary. Maharaja Surajmal of Bharatput had built this bird sanctuary 250 years ago. This is the only park in India that is completely enclosed by a 2-meter-high boundary wall that minimizes the possibilities of any encroachment and biotic disturbances. The park's well-designed system of dikes and sluices provide areas of varying water depths which are used by various avifaunal species. Due to its strategic location in the middle of Central Asian migratory flyway and presence of water, large congregations of ducks, geese, coots, pelicans and waders arrive in the winter.
And moving to the U.S., Republicans in the House of Representatives failed for a second straight day to elect a leader yesterday as a faction of holdouts repeatedly defied former President Donald Trump's call to unite behind his ally Kevin McCarthy. After 3 failed votes and a round of closed-door talks, McCarthy appeared no closer to securing the post of House Speaker, a powerful job second in line of succession to the presidency. The stalemate raised questions about Republicans' ability to govern the overcoming of 2 years as they stumbled over what is usually a routine vote at the outset of a legislative session. House members must first name a leader before swearing in an individual member and taking up legislative business.
Prima Kutumi, Fantamai.
And in your sports news tonight, the second T20 match between Sri Lanka and India is currently underway in Pune.
Winning the toss, India invited Sri Lanka to bat first. Accordingly, Sri Lanka scored 206 runs for the loss of 6 wickets. Captain Dasun Shanaka scored 56 while Kusal Mendis scored 52. Umran Malik picked up 3 wickets for India. India is chasing a target of 207 runs at present.
Prima Kotumi, Fantamai.
And with that, we conclude tonight's English news on Rupavahini. We'll see you tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.